They were the perfect couple. High school sweethearts. A love that survived distance, doubt, and time. And on a sunny afternoon, surrounded by friends and family, they finally said, "I do." But 30 minutes later, they were both dead. A car crash. A heart attack. No. What happened was darker than anyone imagined, and the truth was buried in a letter found under the bride's bouquet. The guests were still lingering at the reception. The smell of roses hung in the air, mingled with champagne and laughter. The Newlyweds. Olivia and Jacob had slipped away quietly just 30 minutes after the ceremony. They left behind clinking glasses, camera flashes, and hundreds of well wishes. No one noticed the way Olivia had gripped Jacob's hand a little too tightly as they walked out. No one heard what she whispered in his ear. No one saw her slip a letter into the folds of her bouquet and lay it on the sweetheart table before they disappeared. The first call came in at 4:13 p.m. A crash on Lakeview Road, 2 fatalities. The dispatcher said they were wearing wedding clothes. The news hit the reception like a hammer. The DJ cut the music. Champagne glasses shattered on the floor. Olivia's mother collapsed. Jacob's father screamed. Some thought it was a sick joke, a cruel prank. Until the police arrived. 2 officers, pale faces, hats in hand. Confirmed identities, confirmed deaths, confirmed heartbreak. But that was only the beginning. Because 30 minutes later, the best man Tyler found the letter. It was folded in half, tucked beneath a white orchid on the table. On the outside, it said, "For whoever has the courage." He opened it, and what he read changed everything. It wasn't a goodbye letter. It was a confession. Written in Olivia's neat cursive, the letter detailed something neither family had ever suspected, something unthinkable. "If you're reading this," she wrote, "then it means we went through with it. And it means we couldn't outrun the truth." What happened 10 years ago wasn't an accident. Tyler blinked, rereading the sentence over and over. 10 years ago, he had known them since high school. They had met at age 15, dated at 17, stayed together through college. What truth? What had they done? The letter went on. "We promised never to speak of it. Not to our parents, not to anyone. But on this day, the happiest day of our lives, it found us again." He found us again. Tyler's hands began to shake. His name was Mason, and we left him behind. Tyler took the letter to the police, but by then the story had already made the news. Tragic wedding day crash. 2 young lovers die within an hour of saying vows. The headline dominated the local paper. What it didn't mention was the town's past. What it didn't remember was Mason. But Tyler did. Barely. A skinny, awkward kid who used to ride the same school bus. Quiet, lonely, then one day gone. No search party, no flyers, just gone. The next day, a local journalist showed up at Tyler's apartment. She had found his name linked to the crash report. She had questions. "Do you think it was suicide?" Tyler shook his head. "I don't know. They were happy, weren't they?" But as he spoke, his phone buzzed. Unknown number. One message. She lied. Tyler stared at the message on his phone. She lied. No sender ID, no name. Just those 2 words sitting on his screen like a curse. He didn't reply. Didn't have to. Within seconds, another message arrived. "Check the lake." He hesitated, then stood, grabbed his keys, and drove. Lake Mercer sat just outside town, quiet, hidden behind rows of pine trees and long forgotten by most. But Tyler remembered. They used to go there in high school, before phones had cameras, before secrets had proof. He parked his car by the gravel lot and walked toward the edge of the lake. Everything was still. The only sound was the wind rustling through the leaves and the occasional creak of tree branches overhead. Then he saw it, half buried in mud. A rusted tin box like an old lunch container. The paint long faded. He pulled it out. Inside, photographs. Water damaged, but still visible. One showed Olivia, Jacob, and Mason, smiling. Another a rope, a canoe, someone in the water. Then the last photo. Mason, alone, soaked, pale, and behind him Olivia's face. Blank. Cold. A message was scribbled on the back of the final photo in marker. "They left me. You should too." Tyler drove straight to the sheriff's office. But the officer on duty didn't seem surprised, didn't ask many questions. Almost as if he already knew. Tyler pressed harder. "This kid Mason, what happened to him?" The officer stared at him for a long beat, then finally said, "That case was sealed a long time ago. But I'll tell you this, some things drown slow." Meanwhile, across town, Olivia's younger sister Elise was going through her belongings. She hadn't been able to cry, not yet, not until it felt real. She opened a drawer in Olivia's room and found a notebook. Inside were pages of wedding plans, dresses, catering vows, and tucked in the back another letter, this one addressed to her. Elise read it slowly, the words swimming in and out of clarity. If something happens, don't let them say it was an accident. We tried to fix it, we really did, but some ghosts don't want peace. They want witnesses. His name was Mason. He wasn't supposed to die. We thought he got out, but we were wrong. He was watching us. The night of the engagement party, I saw him across the street. I thought it was my mind playing tricks, but Jacob saw him too. He said the countdown begins at I do. That same night, Elise couldn't sleep. She flipped through her phone, scrolling Olivia's social media. Smiling photos, laughter, champagne, perfect couple. Then she paused. A photo taken at the wedding, group shot. Blurry, dozens of guests. But at the very back, behind a pillar, half of a face. Not a guest, not family. She zoomed in. The face was familiar. Elise had seen it once before in the newspaper archives when she was helping Olivia research an old yearbook article. Mason, alive, or something that looked like him. The next morning, Elise met Tyler at the lake. They sat on the dock, silence between them heavy as the sky. I think it wasn't just guilt, she finally said. I think they were being hunted. Tyler nodded. Then the wedding wasn't a celebration. It was a sacrifice. Elise found the last thread of truth in the town library's microfilm archive. Hidden in a police report from 10 years ago, one never made public, was the name Mason Trent. Date of death inconclusive. Body never recovered. The report said it was a boating accident. Said Olivia, Jacob, and Mason had gone to the lake. That only 2 came back. Said Mason was presumed drowned. But in the margins, scribbled in pencil by an old investigator, no water in lungs, someone lied. Tyler confronted the sheriff again. This time he didn't back down. You knew all these years. The sheriff rubbed his temples. I was a rookie back then. They told me it was a prank gone wrong, that the kids panicked. But the truth, he paused. The truth doesn't sit well in towns like ours, especially when it wears a smile and walks away. Mason wasn't a nobody. He had family once. That family left. He came back looking for something. Not justice, an ending. Elise and Tyler stood at Lake Mercer again the next night. It was quiet. Too quiet. They lit 2 floating lanterns and pushed them out onto the water. The wind was still, the reflection of the moon fractured by ripples. Tyler placed the tin box of photos at the edge of the dock. He wanted to be remembered, he said. Or forgiven, Elise added. Or maybe he wanted them to admit it. They sat for hours. At 3:00 a.m., the lantern still glowed, drifting far out. Then one suddenly disappeared beneath the water, pulled down by something unseen. Neither spoke. They didn't need to. Back in town, people still told the story. Of the wedding, of the crash, of the letter. But few talked about Mason, and fewer remembered that the wedding cake untouched after the news had 2 figurines standing on top. One bride, one groom, and a third figure carved from black wax tucked behind the veil. No one knew who placed it there, or why it melted that night, without a flame. Weeks later, Elise received one final letter in the mail. No return address. Inside one photo, the 3 of them, Mason, Olivia, Jacob, standing by the lake, all smiling. But written on the back in Olivia's handwriting, we didn't deserve peace, but thank you for giving it anyway. Elise returned to the house. Olivia and Jacob had just bought a white 2-story with an empty swing on the front porch and a welcome home wreath still hanging on the door. Inside it was untouched. The furniture still smelled like new. The wedding gifts sat unopened in stacks near the fireplace. She walked from room to room, tracing her fingers along the walls, pausing in the hallway where they'd planned to hang family photos. In the master bedroom, there was a note Olivia had left on a nightstand, probably scribbled just before the wedding. Can't believe tomorrow's the day. Jacob says it feels like we're already married. I feel scared, but in the best way. Nothing can ruin this. Elise folded the note carefully and placed it in her coat pocket. She didn't cry. Not yet. Tyler, meanwhile, had stopped answering calls. He'd taken a leave of absence from work, spent most of his time at the town archives piecing together every record that had ever mentioned Mason Trent, from school reports to juvenile files. There wasn't much, but there was enough. A series of behavioral notes. One suspension for vandalism, painting a mural in the school basement that no one could explain. Another for obsessive fixation on 2 students, Olivia and Jacob. But here's what Tyler found chilling. The final line in Mason's file before he disappeared read, subject told counselor, they will get married, and they will pay for it. The note was dated 6 months before the alleged accident at Lake Mercer. One afternoon, Elise met Tyler at the church. She had found something else, a second bouquet. Still perfectly preserved dried flowers wrapped in faded ribbon tucked in a storage room behind the altar. Inside it, folded tightly in a secret pocket sewn into the fabric, was a photo. Not of Olivia and Jacob, but of Mason, alone, at the lake. Behind him in the distance, a blurry silhouette that looked disturbingly familiar. A mirror image of Mason, but twisted. What if it wasn't just guilt, Elise asked. What if something else followed them back? Tyler didn't answer. He just held the photo closer to the light. That night, Elise dreamed of Olivia. She stood in the same wedding dress barefoot by the lake. "He's still out there," Olivia said, not blinking. "He doesn't want revenge, he wants a place." And we left the door open. Elise woke in a cold sweat. The wind outside howled. Somewhere in the house, the swing on the porch creaked. She went to the window. The swing moved back and forth, though the air was still. And on the window's fogged-up glass, there were words, "You see me now." She gasped, stepped back, and it vanished. Elise didn't go back to sleep that night. She sat at the kitchen table until sunrise, the fog on the window long gone, but the message burned into her memory. "You see me now." The question echoed again and again in her mind. Who was he really? Was Mason just a name? Or a vessel? She called Tyler. "I think this thing, whatever it is, it doesn't want justice. It wants attention. It wants a story." Tyler was silent. Then said, "Then we tell it." They returned to the lake one last time, this time not to grieve, but to confront. Tyler brought the photos, the journal, the dried bouquet. Elise brought Olivia's final note, the church register, and her own fear. They stood at the dock and began to speak aloud. Not to the wind, but to him. "You were left behind," Elise said. "You were forgotten. We know that now. But hurting others won't bring you back," Tyler added. "It only makes you smaller." A cold gust of air brushed past them. The lake was still. Then slowly the surface began to ripple as if something were surfacing. Elise held out the photograph of Mason. "Let it drop into the water. We remember you, and we're not afraid anymore." The ripples stilled. The trees around them stood silent. And then from the depths of the water, nothing rose. Just silence. That night, Elise finally opened the last gift Olivia had left for her, a small box with her name on it. Inside was a necklace and a note. "For the strongest person I know. Don't carry what we never had the courage to say. Make your own truth." Elise put the necklace on, and for the first time in weeks, she felt warm. Tyler left town not long after. He said he needed space, but promised to return. Before he left one message for Elise. "The lake's quiet now. But if it ever speaks again, I'll be listening." Back at the cemetery, 2 headstones now stood side by side. Olivia Grace Bennett. Jacob Elias Turner. And just a few feet away, newly added by request of an anonymous donor, Mason Trent Lost. Found. Forgiven. Some nights Elise still wakes up at 300 a.m. The mirror flickers. The swing creaks, but nothing knocks. And that she tells herself is enough. 3 months later, everything seemed normal again. Elise had returned to work at the local bookstore. She moved into a small apartment near the town center, far from whispering trees and windows that once echoed with strange tapping. She had learned how to breathe again. Each morning she made tea, read a few pages from Olivia's old books, and wrote in a journal. Not because there was anything urgent to say, but because she wanted to remember what it felt like to have ordinary days. Normal had become sacred. But on a rainy Friday afternoon, everything changed. She was shelving books at the store when a woman stepped inside. Strange, well-dressed, soaking wet from the rain, dark circles beneath her eyes. "Are you Elise Bennett?" the woman asked. Elise nodded cautiously. "This is for you," the woman said, handing over a small black box before turning and walking out without another word. Elise opened it. Inside was a Polaroid, blurred around the edges but unmistakably recent. The photo showed a couple standing by the lake. A woman in a wedding dress, a man holding flowers. They looked exactly like Olivia and Jacob. But the photo was dated yesterday. On the back was a message. "You let them go, but they never left." Elise didn't sleep that night. She reviewed the store's security camera footage. There was no sign of the woman who had delivered the box. She called Tyler now, living 300 miles away. I think they're still here." There was a pause on the line. Then Tyler asked something strange. "Have you ever heard of a place called Mirror's Gate?" The name had appeared in an old newspaper article Tyler uncovered, an abandoned patch of land just outside town, rumored to have once housed a church, burned to the ground in 1952 after a string of unexplained disappearances. Locals had dubbed it Mirror's Gate because they believed it reflected what souls couldn't let go of. Tyler sent Elise a local map with a red circle drawn around the area, and a single note: "They're not haunting us, they're trapped." Elise decided to go. She stood at the edge of what used to be Mirror's Gate on a damp, misty afternoon. The grass reached her knees. The air smelled of mold, ash, and forgotten time. In the middle of the field, she found a collapsed wooden frame, the ruins of what might have been the old church. Beneath moss and dirt half buried in the earth was a broken mirror pane. She crouched down and looked into it. And in that moment, she didn't see herself. She saw Olivia, standing perfectly still, unblinking. And slowly, Olivia raised her hand, pressed it against the glass from the other side. Elise stumbled back, eyes burning, heart racing. And then she heard a voice, not in her head, not from the ground, right beside her ear. "You promised to remember, but forgetting is easier, isn't it?" If this story chilled you to the bone, if it made you question the line between love, guilt, and the unseen, leave your thoughts in the comments. What would you do if the people you buried reached back from the other side like this video to support true human stories that linger? Subscribe to Tim Stories and hit the bell because some endings are only the beginning. Share this with someone who still believes that love leaves echoes.